Hi, this is Stephanie Freid for CGTN, and I'm in the Mykolaiv Oblast, or region of Ukraine. That's in the south of Ukraine. Behind me, you can see ruins from the ongoing conflict here. We see a lot of this. We have been seeing a lot of this throughout the country. In all the places that we've been, Mykolaiv has been very hard hit. We have also been in Zaporizhia, which is close to the nuclear power plant that is right now in a state of somewhat of emergency. It's controlled by Russia. There's been a lot of activity there, shelling, concern about the nuclear power plant. We have been in Odessa. There was a blast in Odessa, less damage. We are also in an area, Nikopol, right across from the nuclear power plant, which is in the Dnipropetrovsk or the Dnipro region or the Zaporizhia region. It depends on who you're talking with. And Nikopol's right across from the nuclear plant. We saw damage there as well from shelling, but some of the things like that you're seeing here, these are some major weapons that are being fired on the cities, and some cities in Ukraine are being hard hit. Let's say Kharkiv, Bakhmut. As this fighting goes on, some cities are hit harder than others. Mykolaiv Oblast, Mykolaiv City, certainly being hit every day, frequently, and with high caliber weapons. So what I'll do today is just give you a little bit of a rundown of what's happening right now in terms of what I know from Ukraine authorities, from Russian government reports, and from intel analysts that I'm in contact with. So let me give you a rundown. First, let's talk about the military situation. Over the past few days, there's been a spike in attacks on Crimea. Crimea is south of this area. It is an area that was taken control of by Russia in 2014. Now, the attacks are being attributed to Ukraine. The Ukraine government, military, they are not confirming that. But we're talking about explosions, reports of drone and new high caliber weapon attacks on the Crimea area that again is Russia controlled. That possibly new weapons that have been provided to Ukraine by the US. Again, no confirmation on the part of Ukraine. I'll give you a few examples. Explosions that were reported in what's called Holland Bay, and that is in the Sevastopol area of Crimea. Another explosion in an area called Lapinskaya Bay. Again, this is all down in Crimea areas. Also explosions out at sea, south of Crimea. And 3 explosions in Bakhchisarai. Also, we're talking again about this southern Crimea area. What to make of this, especially due to the fact that Ukraine's not taking responsibility for these explosions? So I'm going to go to the intel analysts that I confer with. They're saying that possibly this could be a Ukrainian probe of Russian air defense systems. So basically testing the proverbial waters, in this case the skies, firing things to see what's there. What does their defense system look like in preparation for possibly a larger scale attack on the part of Ukraine? That's speculation. That's also not confirmed, but that's how intel analysts are reading these latest attacks or latest explosions, if you will, in the south of where we are now, Crimea area. On the flip side, we have reports of, excuse me, 2 cruise missiles that were launched onto Odessa, which is west of where we are now, port city of Odessa, tourist city, a lot of revenue there. It is an important strategic, not only naval city, but also port city for exports for Ukraine. So 2 cruise missiles that were launched Saturday night. They were intercepted, but according to the reports I'm getting, 3 more landed in the Odessa region or Oblast in agricultural areas. Not quite sure exactly where. That's something that Ukraine intel keeps very quiet, but those were not intercepted. So that's the latest in terms of bringing you up to speed on what I've got on military actions. Now let's talk about the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. So we just came from Zaporizhzhia city, which is about an hour away from the power plant. The power plant has been controlled by Russia, by Russian forces since March. And lately there's been shelling around the plant, at the plant, from the plant, and Ukraine and Russia are both blaming each other, saying, no, they did it, no, they did it. So it's back and forth, who's responsible. Tensions remain there at the plant, but there's been an outcry in the entire international community calling for Russia to demilitarize the plant, for International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors to be allowed access to the plant, because there are reports of damage. There are reports that some of the censoring equipment there that monitors radiation levels, that they've been damaged, that electricity has been cut to some of the reactors at the plant. Dangerous, dangerous stuff. And we even had the Turkish President Erdogan, who was in Lviv in western Ukraine on Thursday, and he was warning that this could be, at this power plant, another Chernobyl. And that's a reference to the biggest nuclear disaster that in the world's history that happened at the Chernobyl nuclear power facility pretty close to Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine. So tremendous new reports over the past day or so of shelling around the plant. But I do have, going back to these intel sources, a report, and this I think is also more common knowledge. You know, the people manning and running the plant are Ukrainian atomic energy experts, alongside Russian experts who were brought in to work with them. So you have two sides working together to keep the plant running and to keep any disaster from happening. Recently, past few days, the Ukraine employees have been told, stay home, don't come to work, you don't need to come to the plant. Speculation is that possibly there will be a disconnect, that they may disconnect, that Russia may be planning to disconnect electricity or disconnect Ukraine from the electric grid of the plant. That plant provides Ukraine with 50% of its electricity. That could be the speculation around stay home. Russia is saying that Ukraine did shell the plant area over the past day. And we have a new assertion from Russian officials saying that Ukraine has fired chemical substances around the nuclear power plant, hitting Russian soldiers. And they were specifically referring to botulinum toxin type B. So to give you a better understanding of what is botulinum toxin type B, what does that do? Well, it creates difficulty in breathing, muscle weakness, swelling of the tongue, the throat, the face, blurs vision. There's no confirmation of this. And going back to some of the analysts that I'm in touch with, their feeling is that possibly this is what's called a false flag on the part of Russia. They're claiming chemical usage so that they can in turn possibly use chemicals against Ukraine forces. No confirmation. I'm offering up what I've got. Let's go to next subject on my list here, which is, and we can walk around, and Gilly can show you while I'm talking. How about Gil? Gil's behind the camera. Gil, why don't you show a little bit of what the damage behind me, so it's not just on me. Something interesting to, and shocking as well to see when you see the scope of the damages. And we see this every single day. And we hear air raid sirens every single day warning of these strikes. And not just once a day. Every city we're in, every place we go, air raid sirens that sound throughout the day. And we hear the booms of the hits sometimes. Sometimes they rattle all of the windows of wherever we are, or they shake the ground of where we're standing. And the damage it can be pretty incomprehensible and shocking when you see it and you see people's personal effects within the damage. You see shoes, you see people's personal things, their papers, their computers, their Sorry, you may have. You see their computers, you see their shoes, you see nail polish, you see photos, you see children's toys and stuffed animals, and then you realize it looks like a pile of rubble, but these were people who lived in these places, and these were livelihoods and lives that were lost. I'm going to talk to you now about Independence Day and Ukraine preparing for strikes. I'm going to talk just a wee bit about I'll just bring you back to the nuclear power plant, is that Russia reportedly has agreed for observers to go in to see the nuclear power plant. That's unconfirmed right now. That's coming via French President Emmanuel Macron, who was saying he spoke with Russian President Vladimir Putin a few days ago, and he's saying that there had been a sticking point. IAEA officials or experts wanted to come in and make sure things were okay at the plant. We don't have a confirmation of that yet from the Kremlin. Now, back to Independence Day. A few days from now, August 24th, is Ukraine's Independence Day. And that is the day that Ukraine declared independence from the former Soviet Union. Hello. So Ukraine officials are getting ready for Independence Day, basically with warnings. They're concerned that there are going to be major missile strikes, major strikes in general on cities on some of the major cities in Ukraine, that there could be a spike in strikes on the part of Russia. So the government is implementing security measures to get people in Ukraine ready for that. What are those security measures? As of Sunday, we understand that the metro, the subway system in Kyiv, the capital, will operate on limited hours so that people can go under there into the subway system and hide, take cover if they need to. As well, Kharkiv, which is in the northeast of Ukraine, they've been hit pretty consistently and pretty hard by Russia since the start of this conflict. In Kharkiv, a lockdown has been implemented from the 23rd, a day before Independence Day, to the morning of the 25th. People have to stay in their houses. They're not allowed to go out. There will be longer curfews reportedly in other cities, and we expect to see possibly lockdowns in other cities as well, because the government just doesn't want people out and about and for people to be vulnerable if there will be strikes. And again, there is the expectation that there will be strikes. Generally, Independence Day in Ukraine would be happy. There would be parades, military parades. That certainly isn't going to happen this year. Before coming here to Zaporizhia, coming east, I interviewed the deputy mayor of Odessa in western Ukraine, and he talked about, after we saw some rehearsals for performances, street performances that were to take place in Odessa to mark Independence Day, he talked about the fact that those performances would go forward, but venues wouldn't be announced ahead of time. No mass gatherings. It's questionable now whether those performances really will go forward. We saw orchestras rehearsing, we saw dance troupes rehearsing. Whether those will go forward in light of the danger that the government believes here will be vis-a-vis strikes on Independence Day, before Independence Day, remains to be seen. And circling full circle back to what I talked about in the beginning, the strikes on Crimea, retaliation. There's a full expectation. It doesn't matter that Ukraine has not claimed responsibility. There still could be retaliatory, high-level strikes on major cities in Ukraine for some of what has been happening lately in Crimea and in the region south of Crimea and the sea. So that's bringing you up to speed right now, what's happening and what I've got for now from the Mykolaiv Oblast. I'm heading back to Mykolaiv City, where there's been pretty constant shelling over the past few days. I'm going to check out what's happening there, because there was a strike on Saturday near the South Nuclear Power Plant. That's another power plant in the Mykolaiv district. We were there a week or two ago just to check it out because it's Ukraine's #2 nuclear power plant, and we wanted to see if they're concerned about being next in terms of a takeover and the same sort of scenario we're seeing at Zaporizhia. After Mykolaiv, we will be heading back to Odessa because we want to be in place for what may be in a major city, Odessa being a major city, leading up to Independence Day. We also want to see if there will be any celebrations to mark Independence Day. So stick with us. Thank you for being with us. And I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you.